Okay, we are recording. Richie Ramone, how are you, my friend?
Very good. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right. Where are you today?
Right now I'm in Newbury. Uh,
Nice.
you know, Claire, my bassist, her mom lives here, so we came here for a visit. So I just got back from the French Alps because we have a condo over there that we had redone, and so it's been a hectic week. But I go back Sunday.
Nice. Nice.
So,
So what's happening musically at the moment?
well, right now, the albums just come out, and people are really digging it. So I'm happy about that, and I'm sure we'll start touring again. I know I go to South America in October again, stuff like that. But I'm just taking a little time off. Last year was pretty busy, but I'm really pleased the way the record turned out.
Did last year kind of get hectic because it was kind of playing catch up from the lockdown? Did that kind of sort of just obviously put the brakes on everything?
Yeah, well, the lockdown put the brakes on, but it's not really hectic. I do, I do my own thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of bands, which were trying to catch up, you know what I'm saying? So you had to book like, things were getting booked like 5 months in advance.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so it was a little more difficult, but we did a lot last year. Uh, and it was fun, So I'm really excited now that people have this record. I can't wait to go on tour again because then they could sing along to the songs.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff we were playing already, but they never heard it before,
Yeah. Richie, tell me a little bit about the any real significant change that you've seen in making records now to when, if we go back to the early 80s when you was making records with with the Ramones first.
Right.
Like, tell me a little bit about the sort of significant changes that you've noticed.
Well, the biggest change is naturally, not recording to tape anymore,
Yeah.
digital Pro Tools. Um, so that makes it there's a little difference there, in the sound and stuff. But mainly I do the same process that I did in the Ramones. We all get in the room together. Uh, we all play the songs together and then go back and once you get the drum track, it goes on from there,
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
once the drum track is done, which usually me, I'm really quick. All those Ramones records were first takes, maybe a couple songs where I got two takes on them. But so those don't need fixing. That's it. Then you fix the bass and the guitar, and then you do vocals, and then you do some overdub guitars to make
Yeah.
sure that they don't step on the vocals. But the process is pretty much the same. The editing goes a little quicker because it's so these guys are really fast,
Yeah.
but you still make a not mixing, but you make the record in a week type of thing.
And what about kind of post that? I'm looking at like the way that people get their music now
Mm,
through streaming services like Spotify and things like that. They've only
right.
been something that's come about now, and just the things like social media for marketing records, and whereas I guess back in the day it was like you need to get on radio and then you need to just gig it hard. Like, what sort of
Right.
changes have you noticed there?
Well, back in the day, you could just go to a radio station and they'll play your record or do whatever. Um, and now there's like no real radio in the States anymore. It's all corporate owned by Clear Channel and stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's all pre-programmed. There's no way you're gonna walk in there and they're gonna put on your record. So that's changed a lot. You know, that's been a big change. Getting airplay is very, very difficult. You're gonna, especially this kind of music. Is like rock and roll is probably number 4 or 5 in line behind pop and hip hop and rap and
yeah,
all those other things. And back in the '80s, it was number one rock and roll,
yeah,
but it isn't anymore. So, uh, but you know, it is what it is. And
yeah,
I still enjoy it. That's why I do it, and I still have something to say. So that's important. Once I don't have any of those things anymore, then I'll just stop, you know. But I enjoy touring too, because I have a lot of friends all over the world, you know, so it's a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And naturally, the other thing is the digital download, you know. A lot of people are, you know, just download, but, you know, they're missing out on the artwork. You know, luckily for Ramones fans are collectors. They want it. They want everything. They want to hold it. They want to see the lyrics. They want, you know, they like to collect everything. So you could put it out on clear vinyl. You could put it out on black vinyl. They want to own all of those things. So I'm fortunate that way. But it's basically a world of, you know, download. So it's kind of funny, you know, you do all this and make it sound amazing, and all they're doing is listening to this little tiny speaker on their phone,
Yeah.
or through the pods on their ear. But I was really impressed with the MP3s, the sound when you download this new album. It sounds really, really good. So there's an art to making it sound good on, you know, the download side.
It's weird though, Richie, because I think it's a real catch-22. You know, I completely and utterly agree with what you say, that one of the big losses with the sort of digital format is album artwork. And nobody
Right.
knows iconic album sleeves more than the Ramones. Do you know what I mean? But
Right.
there's so many records that in some cases the sleeves are more famous than the bands. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? And you can't think of Nirvana without thinking of the Baby in the Water, you know. And
Right.
there's so many, Bowie, but the list goes on.
Right.
And you don't get that when you look at this tiny little square on your phone when you're
Right.
pressing play. And I think that's a shame. However, the flip side of it is, I do think it's, you know, we've been able to download. I do like the fact that I think it's quite punk insofar as it allows artists to upload music and get their music out there without having to get record deals, without having to pay to print records. I do think it's got a positive there, but it does also
Yes.
feel that, you know, you just, it's hard. You've then got to work on that marketing, because you just get lost in a sea of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands
Right.
of artists putting music out constantly. It's
Right.
really tough, man.
It,
And
it's really tough to get ahead of the pack. There are so many bands now, and, you know, so many compared to 30 years ago. It's ridiculous, you know. But it's great for the artists and the new bands and the kids starting out, because they do have a platform where they can put their music, you know, and get ahead, as opposed to going around with a cassette and shopping it, you know, trying
yeah,
to get a deal. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no more like, you know, back in the day, it used to be cool. It'd be like, oh, the A&R guy's coming from Capitol Records. We got to do a good show tonight. You know, like there'd be scouts out all over town looking for bands. There's really nothing like that anymore.
yeah,
It's all, you know, and you'd get demo deals where they sign you and give you money to make a record. Nah, that don't happen anymore. You have to make the record, complete the record, mix the record, do the whole product, the artwork, and then you shop the deal.
yeah,
You know, they basically give you nothing, you know, maybe small amounts of money. But on the flip side of that is I own all the masters. So,
yeah, yeah.
you know, no one can, you know, they can't say no, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, so it has its good and its bad. And it's just, you know, it's just the way everything is right now. There's a
Yeah,
lot of good and bad things about the world right now, you know.
yeah,
But what are you going to do?
absolutely.
You can't fight it. I'm not going to fight it. And I like all types of music, you know, just because rock and roll is that the main thing, you know. I listen to all stuff from, you know,
Yeah,
Snoop Dogg to everything, you know. I find interest in all kinds of music. And that's kind of where I guess I get some of my style from, because I'm not just slave to, you know, oh, I only listen to punk rock, or, you know, that type of thing, you know, which I think all musicians should listen to all kinds of music, let it all get in your brain, and then let it come out, you know, in your way. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I can see the parallels between punk rock and hip hop. Do you know what I mean? It was urban music made by, you know, poor kids that had something to say that was completely anti-establishment. Do you know what I mean? I think, like,
Right.
and as a drummer, you know,
Mhm.
surely, Richie, you know, you must you must like hip hop, because hip hop is
Right.
fundamentally it's drums, right? It's all
Right.
drums.
I remember back in the day the early days when they just used the drum machine on it. And I
Yeah,
always said, God, why don't they, man, if, you know, because why don't they use a real drummer just laying down that beat, you know? And that's what
yeah,
they do now. Because I don't know, it's way better. It's hard to do shows. Drumming is a very visual thing up there, you know. And if you have a band and there's no drummer, it's kind of a weird looking thing. So now they
yeah,
all use drummers and just lock down that beat. You got to have a groove. Drumming is all about the groove. It's not about, you know, what kind of fill you could put in there. Who cares about that? You know, it's nice to know those fills, but you know, I find too many guys just do too much of it and really don't hold the groove, like a Charlie Watts or someone like that. You know, who's just who just molds all this together. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Knows where to play something and what not to play. You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
everything today is like double bass drum pedal, like as fast as you can make your feet go. You know,
yeah. Richie, I want to go back a little bit and
yeah.
sort of understand your story a little bit, and tell me a little bit about where you grew up, and was home a musical place growing up?
Yes, well, I grew up in Passaic, New Jersey, which is probably about 10 miles from New York City, you know. And what was musical in my home is my parents, you know, I grew up in the 60s. I have four other siblings, and they had every child learn an instrument because they felt that gave them a sense of responsibility, you know, practice, and, you know, because we didn't have the internet or nothing like that. So, like, my sister took up the flute, my other sister took up the clarinet, somebody played the piano, but they didn't stay with it, you know. I stayed with the drums, and my older brother, you know, he plays all instruments, but he mainly played sax and went to college as, you know, a music major and stuff like that. But so that was kind of cool. And but growing up, I always was beating on my chest, and by I guess third or fourth grade, I already had a drum teacher, and you know I was already learning drums. So I've been playing drums 50 years already. So it's so I guess you can call it a musical family. There was no, I think there was one of my father's cousins or something was a musician. I don't know, but we had music in our family. And what was great is that my parents always had parties and they always had a free band, you know. My brother would play and I would play, and you know, so it's kind of fun.
Can you remember like the sort of first sort of music that you would hear that would resonate with you?
Well, like the thing is, like my dad always said, you're 5 years ahead of your time, because when I was 8, my brother was 13, 14. He was buying the records. So, you know, in the late 60s, music was changing. Every day there'd be a new sound coming out or new bands. And being that he was a horn player, I wasn't just listening to Cream or, you know, Ginger Baker or that or any of that stuff. There was more, you know, Cool and the Gang in the 70s and all that kind of stuff. So I had such a big background of music. Um, that you know, it was amazing, you know. And but as far as drummers, when they caught my ear when that first Led Zeppelin album came out and I heard John Bonham play, that was really that was changing for me, you know, how he used his bass drum. You know, it was almost like he had three hands. You know, his
Yeah,
syncopation was so amazing, and the way he played the drums, he made him sing. You know, I don't want to get too carried away on this subject, but you know, drumming isn't about. So you could put John in a room. You know, you don't hit the cymbals as hard as you hit everything else. You know what I'm saying? It's like he used far away miking, so you had to make the instrument sound, you know, even all around, the way the snare was and the toms and the cymbals. Instead of just smashing everything to death, you know, you had to make it all come together, because he didn't put close mics on things. He used far away miking. And so I got a lot of technique from that. So you could put a drum kit in the room and it should sound musical. You should be able to, it should sound musical to your ear. It shouldn't be like the snare drum blowing your ear off with the cymbals. It should be all, you know, musically combined, you know.
Yeah.
It's an acoustic instrument, you know. But today now everything is close mic'd and everything, so you don't need to do that really.
Yeah.
You know.
Was by the time you got to school, was music something that was encouraged at school?
Was it encouraged in school? Um, well, yeah, I guess so. From like, you know, kindergarten or first grade, at recess, they had this dirty box in the corner. And it's recess, and everybody would go in there, and there were like plastic instruments and stuff. And kids would pick up a little trumpet to blow on, and we march around. I always would pick up like the sand blocks or something that made a rhythmic pattern. But you know, and then as time goes on, when you get to junior high school and high school, yeah, music was a big part of my life. I played in big bands, you know, I played jazz, I played all kinds of stuff. I learned to read music at an early age, which a lot of drummers don't really do anymore, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, so I did all of that difficult stuff and ended up being in the Ramones. But the thing is, I had that all in the back of my head, you know, so I could play that beat and make it swing, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's important. No matter what you're playing, it swings, you know, like it's not stiff, you
yeah,
know. My meter was fantastic, and so all of that knowledge, you know, really came in handy. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Was there any question as to what you wanted to do when you was growing up? Was music always going to be what you wanted to do?
Probably. Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. That was pretty much it. I remember, you know, I didn't go to university because I went right on the road. I just wanted to do music. You know, my parents said, "All right, if that's what you want to do," you know. I don't know if that was the wisest thing, you know, because uh, the music business is a tough life. But I went right on the road playing in cover bands and stuff like that at 17 years old, you know. So, but it was kind of everything you know, it really took a hold of me hard. You know, my father had his own landscaping business. I could have took over that. You know, he had a big business like that. I didn't want it, and I guess it went to my cousin. You know, bought it. Music was everything to me. You know, so
But that's I mean that's really cool. I mean there's not many parents that would get their son a drum kit because that's the noisiest thing and the last thing you want in your house. And like
right,
you know, they get their kid a drum kit and then they encourage their kid to pursue what he wants to do.
well,
I mean that's great, right?
yeah, they didn't care. I set that up in the basement with big, giant speakers, and I would, you know, I would play to all these bands. You know, the music on from the records. You know, I put on records and played all those songs and played the beats. It was a lot of fun. They never complained about that at all, ever, ever, ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of cool.
Tell me a little bit about you know sort of post school when punk rock started, and tell me how you first kind of found yourself embroiled
Well,
in that.
you know, for a long time, like when the Ramones came out, '75 or punk rock, you know, I wasn't on that scene because I was a little young. You know, I was 5, 6 years younger than those guys. But I wasn't on that scene because my older brother wasn't a guitar player in the MC5. You know, he
Yeah,
was a horn player. So naturally, those records weren't coming through the door. You know, and but I always have a funny story. I guess I was 18, and I took some friends who I knew from high school in Dover, New Jersey, to see this new thing, the Ramones, in 1975, I think it was. You know, and I still remember to this day sitting by the soundboard going, wow, and listening to I Want to Be Your Boyfriend. And this was really cool. And everybody else there was like, well, come on, let's get out of here. We got to go. And because remember at that time it was arena rock and we were
yeah,
listening to Yes. We were listening to Yes, Roundabout and things like that. And this was totally different than that, but it really caught my eye. But then I still continued playing in cover bands, and I really was never a fanboy of anything really. I just made my own way. Like I really didn't hang posters in my wall or stick to one type of thing. I knew two drummers that I loved, Buddy Rich and John Bonham. They were my, idols and stuff like that. And but and it just went from there, I mean, and then how the band happened. Well, it was finally when I one day I said, all right, that's it. Now I want to play original music. I want to get an original band. And
How old
that's
was you? How old was you then, Richie?
Huh?
How old was you then, Richie?
How old was I then? 20 maybe?
Yeah.
20. I said, I want to be original band. And that's when I made no more money. Then I went broke. Okay. I couldn't make money off of music. So I started looking at ads and, got in original bands and started doing that kind of stuff and getting into New York City. And then I finally moved to New York City. And that was a game changer to me when I moved to the East Village in New York City when I was like 22, maybe, or 22 or something. Then I was exposed to all this stuff, going from the punk rock to that whole scene. You know what I'm saying? It changed everything for me. But before that, no, I was still listening to different types of music and playing in cover bands,
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about what it was like, getting to, East Village then. And because as, in the UK, we've got our own sort of view of what happened in '77 in the UK with the Pistols and stuff, and it's all, as you look back, it's always much more sort of colourful, and the UK was in a really bad place in 1977. But when we see what was going on and we see the footage of the Ramones and Talking Heads and Blondie and television and all this stuff, it looks so exciting. As a Brit, they're bands that I'm drawn to, and that scene looks so exciting.
It was exciting.
Is it everything that people say it is?
And more. Everything and more.
Yeah.
I mean, the East Village was just this melting pot of people. The rents were cheap. The housing was small. You had like rats living there. It was like, really living in the hood. But boy, it was all condensed, so you could just walk around, like sort of like Camden was back in the day, where you could walk around and see people on the street all night long. But it was exciting, especially those days when I remember when Tom Petty opened up for the Ramones and things like that. There's and Blondie, they all surpassed that band eventually. But it was really exciting, and I think that's the difference of being there. I was there more in the late '70s, early '80s, but that was still a time when things were still happening. Now today, when the kids are doing punk rock, it's really just a copy and emulation of that. Which they do a great job of. I'm not taking anything away from anybody, but back in the '70s and the early '80s, we were actually living and breathing that. You know what I'm saying? It was like real. I mean, so that was the difference about it. But the scene was exciting. It was just, God, it was a wonderful place to grow up as a teenager, as a young 20 in your 20s. It taught you a lot about life and taught you a lot about, like I don't know if I would want to have grown up like in the middle of Arkansas or like one of these weird places, or even California where I live now. New York City was really an amazing spot to give you integrity and to teach you about life. You learned a lot about life walking on those streets. I'm sure you have places like that in England back in the day, but it taught me a lot. And the
Was you,
Ramones taught me a lot.
was you confident before you moved there, or did you feel that you gained confidence from living there? Because you've played on huge stages to thousands and thousands of people, which to most people seems like something that they could never do. It would be alien, the concept of walking on stage and playing for people. Have you always had a level of confidence, or did that grow when you moved to East Village?
No, always. I always knew I was good.
Yeah,
I didn't want my head to, I always knew I was special. I
yeah,
always knew I had that it factor, the IT factor, that there was something, that, you know, even like walking into the Ramones to the audition that I had to do for them. I didn't know them before I had to audition. And I knew I was good. And I knew I would, kill that audition. And I did. And I got the job.
yeah,
So it was, I was always very confident because I started at a young age. And you got to remember, I was already playing live at 12 years old
yeah,
in the Catskills and different places because my brother was 16 and 17, and I never had to work at Burger King or McDonald's or nothing because I would play on weekends in my brother's band, playing whether it be weddings or the nightclubs or stuff like that. I used to have a special card. It's called an ABC card that would let you go into a place that served liquor at a young age like that. So that's another thing. I had the experience of playing live from a young age, because you can't get that out of a book.
yeah,
You have to actually do it, and listen, always listen to the other musicians around you, which too many times people are caught listening to themselves play as opposed to listening to the other musicians in the band. Like when I'm playing, I'm not listening to me. I'm listening to everybody else, you
yeah.
know.
Tell me a little bit about that audition, if you don't mind, Richie. What are your sort of memories of it?
Oh, well, I can remember it exactly. You know, it's all in my book. I might as well mention that I Know Better Now, my autobiography. It's a great, great book. You can get that on Amazon. But the I Larry, friend of mine, was the drum roadie for the Ramones, and I saw him one night, and we were hanging out in Brooklyn. I said, "Oh, you got to go. Where you going?" "Oh, the Ramones are auditioning drummers," he said. I said, "What?" I said, "Well, tell them about me. I was in the band Velveteen, put my name in the hat." So maybe a week later or so, I got a phone call from Monty, the tour manager. I still have that cassette tape from 1982 or late 82. Uh, Hi, this is Monty, tour manager. We'd like you to come and audition, learn, 3 or 4 songs. And so I was like, holy man, this is amazing. So I learned the songs and went down. I remember another drummer coming out. I don't know who it was. And they called my name and I went in there and I walked in. Joey wasn't there. The room smelled like weed, which I guess Dee Dee was smoking away. And I walked in there. I arranged the drums. They said, "You ready?" And they said, "What?" "Okay. Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "Okay, let's play Blitzkrieg Bop." And we went into it. They went, "Oh, good." Played 3 or 4 songs. Said, "Thanks a lot," and left. And then they invited me back and then back another time. So uh, it was exciting. Next time Joey came down, and so it was basically like any other blind audition.
Yeah,
I, you know, but I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time and know somebody because it wasn't an advertised thing in a newspaper.
yeah.
And and look at that. Look how it changed my life. Here I am, 66 years old, and uh, I owe everything. I'm blessed that I was in that band. Just blessed. You know.
You talk about the longevity in the industry. You just dropped a new record, and
Mhm.
I think being a solid drummer and having that confidence that you said you had, all of that's good. But I think drive is really important as well, and that kind of to have that drive to keep moving forwards. Would you say you're a driven person, Richie?
Well, I hope so. Yeah, I don't, you know, if I sit around too much, it messes with my head, you know. So
Yeah,
uh I'm a big thinker, you know, and then I start thinking too much and it's this bad energy. So yeah, I'm driven, I knew I could do it and you know, um and for a while I stopped there, after I left the band, there was like really 10 years I didn't really play drums. I said, oh, that's it, I'm done. I tried playing in other bands. I moved to Los Angeles and it was like, it can never be the same as the Ramones. And I stopped. And then um, after all that time, something was eating at me like, what's the matter with me? Am I sick? Or, I just never felt right. And it was, I was missing the fans. I was missing all of that excitement and energy of playing live. And I went to the first Joey Ramone birthday batch, which is ironic, is his birthday. The big party's in New York City. They have it every May 19th in his honor. I think it's the 22nd birthday bash. I played a bunch of those. And his brother invited me down. And I played that. And then I went the next year and it's like, wow. People start to say, man, you're good still. You should make a record, And I was like, what? I don't know how to make a record or anything. So I eventually wrote my first album and then the second and now the third. And each one has, gotten better. And basically I'm a new artist because I'm the singer, you know what I'm saying? So live, I play some drums and sing, but I have another drummer who comes on tour because I have to front the band too. You can't sit behind the drum kit behind, 25 feet back in the dark,
yeah.
and do all that, you have to entertain the crowd. So I'm basically, I'm the front man now as an entertainer and play some drums for the drummers who like my drumming, so I have to do a little of both.
I mean, how
But
was that to sort of return to music and always being that guy that was kind of, as you said, sort of set back a little bit from the guys right at the front to then find yourself you're out there on your own up the front. Did you feel the pressure on that?
uh again, no, because um when I do something, you have to know in this world what's good and bad. You have to know what a good song is, what a bad song is. You just have to know these things, And I kind of have that where I know what I'm doing is right and it's good. And, every night I come off that stage, I hear people tell me that's the best show I saw in 20 years, or that was amazing. Night after night after night after night. Even though, I don't draw big audiences, it's not like, I'm the Foo Fighters. It's not that type of thing. I don't do that kind of music. But, finding my voice and everything was really amazing. And it's, uh, um, growing as a singer,
Yeah,
was really huge. And this is probably my best because I quit smoking like 4 years ago or five. And I mean, my vocal chops have just gotten so great. And either you like my voice or you hate my voice. It's one of those things.
yeah,
But I learned a long time from a producer, well-known producer, Dave Jordan. He says, if you can get 50% of the people to love you and 50% to hate you, you're doing amazing. So
yeah.
that's my thing.
Absolutely.
I do the 50-50 thing. So, you know, um, it's great, but I always was confident. I never had that.
Yeah,
I never had that worry. And like I said, now, if I ever lose my edge or I feel it's not working or, I'm losing some of the energy because these sets are still like an hour and 10 minutes with the encores. You still put a lot of energy out there.
yeah,
I still have to entertain. I'm not a front man who does cartwheels or stuff like that.
yeah,
I'm more of a, I'm just strolling along there with my mic stand, and, a swagger front man. I'm not going
yeah,
to, do David Lee Roth jumps or nothing because that's not even in me,
yeah,
that's not me. What you see on that stage is who I am when I get off the stage.
yeah,
So it's real and the people know that, these, I call them kids, even though my fans are, 40 years old and up, but they know if you're faking it or something
Yeah,
like that. But they know I'm genuine, and that's how it works for me. You have to be genuine.
absolutely. Richie, I've got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
I generally ask guests about clubbing, and that can be dive bars, that can be disco clubs, that can be any kind of clubbing. But I'm just very curious to know what was going at, in the early 80s in New York, because everything was happening in
Yeah.
the early 80s in New York. And I'm a club promoter. I spoke to you before, and I said I'm having some issues at my club, but that I look at that point, then that kind of sort of end of the 70s, early 80s in New York as one of the most exciting times for clubs, for both rock and roll, for disco and for hip hop and for
Yep.
everything. The evolution of electronic music as well. There was so much going on. How was it for you?
When back then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was fabulous. I mean, we used to go out. I remember this one club we used to go to, was reggae music. And it was so dark in there. I think it was one like light bulb hanging from the ceiling. You could barely see in there. And, plus it was a whole different time with the girls and everything, it was just like, it was the Wild West, like today, there's so many rules about everything, there's so many rules. There weren't any rules then, it was just do your thing and have a good time,
Yeah.
but we'd go experience all different kinds of music. I mean, the Lone Star Cafe down the block, tiny little club. That's where I saw James Brown, and things like that. It's just
How was that? How was that, Richie? I've got to ask you, because as a drummer, James Brown's drummers, they've got to be good, right?
There's your groove, and and they have the MC standing on the side. Hit it, James, go. Like he just talked through there, and I was only like 10 feet from him. I mean, it was a small place. The bar's right there, and he was on this small stage there doing his thing. It was amazing. So there was all different kinds of music. You'd bump into, there was another bar called One University that we used to go a lot to, and uh, Keith Richards and Mick Jagger, they had an apartment upstairs. I remember bumping to them on the street at different times, carrying bagfuls of bottles of liquor and stuff like that, The Village was really just a special place. Today, now it's just $5 million condos and all cleaned up. You wouldn't even know it's the same place anymore, But yeah, the scene of the clubs, you can go to all kinds of music all the
Yeah.
time. And we did experience all that,
Yeah.
But it was just wild. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's I'm older now. I just felt like you could get away with so much stuff then, You could be such a bad boy in those days,
Yeah.
Just without really, not doing harm to people, you know what I'm saying? Just getting drunk and high and just having a good time and nobody really bothering you, or watching you or, today I have to watch everything I do. Everybody's got a camera. All of a sudden a picture pops up of you, they're all like shooting pictures wherever you go and things like that. It's different, people are walking around with cameras on their phones. So you have to protect yourself a little because, but then you didn't have to do anything, It was a great time to grow up. I tell you, it was a great time to grow up and a great place to grow up,
I was listening to an interview with Noel Gallagher from the band Oasis the other day, and
Okay.
he was doing a retrospective look back at their sold out 2 nights at Nebworth in the mid '90s,
Okay.
and I think they were the biggest gigs in UK history at the time, and he said, they said to him, like, what do you think made them gigs? Like, so why do people still talk about them gigs now? Them 2 gigs, like what? And he went, no one had camera phones. No one had
Right.
phones. Everybody was in the moment. Nobody was filming. Nobody was looking at text. Nobody was on social media. Everybody was connecting with the band. And I just thought, I'd never thought that. Like,
Today, everybody's like this.
Yeah.
So, you know, like they think they could stand there and film my whole show, you know.
Yeah.
I give them like 5 minutes and then I tell them, put that, you can't just stand there and record the show. You know, what is that? You
Get in the
know,
moment. Do you know what I
you
mean?
know, or I take their camera and I shoot the audience. They love that. And I give it back to them. But they're all just like filming. It's different. Another great thing, I saw the Clash at Bonds. People still talk about that show, Bonds in New York City in the 80s. That was one of the floor was shaking so much you thought it was gonna it's on the second floor, We thought the floor was gonna go through. That was an amazing show. So all these bands were coming, and the invasion from Britain too, when I started hearing the Psychedelic Furs and the way the drumming started to, you know, be much more on meter and precise, like with the Furs and all that. And, like I remember Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics, he did produce one song with the Ramones. And during my tenure, we never used a click track. And he said, well, I want to use a click because I want to add a synthesizer. I said, nah, we're not going to do that. And he called me the human drum machine because I was like one beat per minute different from the start to the end. 1 beat per minute. That's like ridiculous,
Yeah.
So
Love it.
I learned how to keep time perfectly, which is another important thing, A lot of drummers tend to like pull away in choruses and then pull back on the verses. It's this constant tug of war. You never heard that in the Ramones. It was like the drummer's the conductor, and when I would play with them, it would be like, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. I just go. And what made our lineup so special was I was going down the train track and holding that time signature perfectly. And Johnny would be around, ahead or behind, and Dee the same way. So they were all just a little off in the Ramones thing, which made this big sound, Like, people the Ramones cover bands are all going, trying to make it so tight, it sounds like a machine. Well, we weren't like that, the strumming was different. Like there was always G, 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 and it wasn't going G, 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 G. They all think it was just constant 16th notes, and it wasn't, So holding that middle down and letting them all float around me was perfect, It would be like, come on, come and catch me. And it just worked, It was a very, very powerful that lineup, and completely different lineup than when they first started, different sound. But anytime you change drummers, the sound of the band's going to change. There's no doubt about it. It's just whether it's for better or worse or neither, just different. It just becomes different. Like Tommy was more like a Charlie Watts drummer, who, wasn't beating like that. You know what I'm saying? Which gave it that real early raw punk sound. Then as time moved on, and during my tenure, then hardcore was coming out, and we were playing faster because kids liked it, and it wasn't on purpose. It was just subconscious that we ended up playing fast. It wasn't like that, that we made a conscious effort of it. But it was, I don't know. It was just, I keep thinking, well, was that because, I was 25, was that the reason? I don't think it was just because I was 25. I just think it was that was what the time was. And, at that time,
I read that Joey said that you saved the band when you joined. Like, what do you think he meant by that? And what do you think you done that saved the band?
I mean, what a compliment. Who could say that about somebody? Oh, it's amazing. What he meant was, here I come, kid from New Jersey, suburbs. Well, I was living in New York at the time, but I came in, I bought peace from everybody. When a new member comes in, everybody was on their best behavior then, you know what I'm saying? And I bought new blood. I bought new energy. They wanted to, they were getting sleepy. They had pleasant dreams. They had one or two albums before Too Tough to Die. They weren't sure what they were going, and I just brought a new sound, a new energy, and it worked. And Too Tough to Die is like was an amazing record, the first one that I did with them. And Joey was, such a sweetheart. I owe it all to him. He embraced me with open arms from the first time I met him. I was in that band 4 years and 10 months. I think we were together every day, 4 years and 10 months. I mean, we always were together, whether we were touring or whether we were hanging out at night every night. And he always encouraged me. He was like, Richie, we're doing a record. Start writing, no, yeah, write a song, write some songs. He wanted me to sing. He used to call me Phil Collins because I could sing and I could play drums and I could write songs. So, he wasn't the type of guy, some lead singers are like, stay in the background, don't take away from my show, what I'm saying? He wasn't like that. He pushed me, and just a wonderful guy, So I owe a lot to him for making me feel so comfortable right from the beginning and encouraging me to do more and do more,
Richie, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you about records, man, and to spend some time listening to your story.
Yeah.
I want to, just before we wrap things up, just talk a little bit more again about
Sure.
the new record. So what can people expect from it, Richie?
Oh, gosh. What can you expect? You can expect you're finally going to hear, I'm Richie Ramone. I'm not the Ramones. So you're going to hear Richie Ramone, what Richie Ramone's sound is. It's all over this record. This record talks a lot about mental health, which a lot of people struggle with. Depression, addiction, stuff like Suffocate, that, some of the lyric in there is, I need a straitjacket to force me into a hug, just trying to find self-love. I have to squeeze so hard that my ribs break, stuff like that. Everything is about certain things that I go through, different things of not feeling great, maybe not wanting to get out of bed that day, or, there's a lot of, the times where COVID really got me depressed for a long time. I was, you go online on Facebook and you see everybody, oh, we're making records and using this time for this. Geez, I don't know if I left the bed for 5 months during COVID. It was so horrible. It affected me differently than other people. And, but mental health is such a huge thing. People are writing to me now, like they're finally getting these lyrics and, going, oh man, I'm so glad you talked about that, because I struggle with this too. And so the lyrics are fantastic. I think the record's great. It's just an all around good record. I don't know if you heard any of it yet, but it's I don't know. It's what do you? I don't know how to answer that question really. Because you don't sit here and toot your own horn. You just need to get the record. If you can't buy it, just download it for $8.99. It's a wonderful, wonderful album, and lyrically, it's fantastic. That's why it took me a bunch of years. I just don't write songs. It's the songs got to have meaning, and the lyrics are very important to me and what I'm talking about. And stories like Live to Tell. The cover of that record. I don't know if you saw the cover. You must have saw the cover. People wonder, well, what that is. Well, that's, I was ready to go on tour. And, I went for a physical for something. And the doctor called me like 3 days later, said, you're not going anywhere. You have a 6.2 aneurysm right below your belly button. And that's what that picture is. That's the veins in my artery. And that swelling thing is, it's like a bicycle tube when, it swells up.
Yeah.
So it was ready to blow up. I was going to, Czech Republic and everywhere. And if it blows up, you're dead. There's a 1% chance of living. So I was very fortunate about that. That's where that title came from, Live to Tell. And, So it's all personal. I write. I'm not a political writer. I have to write songs, stuff that I've experienced or stuff that I've gone through or things that I've saw. That's where I get my stories from. I can't just make them up. So they're real when I sing them. You know what I'm saying?
We're recording this in the UK. It's Mental Health Awareness Week, and
Ah,
it's something very dear to me. I work for a suicide prevention charity called Reach Out for Mental
okay.
Health, and I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of people this week about that, and I think it's fantastic, Richie, that people in your position
Mhm.
come on podcasts with people like me that you've never met me before, and instantly show that vulnerability of saying, look, I've struggled with my mental health. I want to write about it.
Yeah,
I want to talk to people about it, because
yeah,
it's actions like that makes change, and makes other people speak to other people. It's so important.
yeah. It's huge. It's huge, and especially now, I think the world has changed so much since there's still little bits of COVID still around, but things have changed so much. I think a lot of people have long-term COVID that they don't even know they have. I think it's changed things in their brain and their body. We don't even know to this day, but I just find everybody's a little more angst now. It's just not. It's a little different place.
Yeah,
Uh, and I just want people to know that you're not alone with all this kind of stuff, and from addictions to all these type of things. You're not alone. Like the other song, "Old Ways." Back to my old ways. Only took a couple of days. You
yeah,
try to quit something, and boom, you're back there. So it's going to touch a lot of people, and so it's exciting. And that really wasn't the intent. It's not like, well, I'm going to do a record like that.
yeah,
Again, it's just what comes out. Like people go, like, you know, a lot of people, they hear a song and they want to write a song like that. I don't do any of that stuff. Uh, this just all comes from inside. So, and that all musicians should learn that. Don't just try to, oh, you heard a song by this band, you want to do a song like that, because that's all that's going to do for you. There's no satisfaction there. And if you have, maybe you'll have a hit, it's a satisfaction because you copied someone else's sound or whatever. But my sound is very unique, and I think on this record, the third one, Cellophane, my last album was great, but on this record, you really hear my sound because what you hear on that record is what you're going to hear live.
yeah,
People come up to me and go, "Oh my God, you sound just the same as your record," like the singing thing. So,
yeah,
and this is difficult for me too, because I hate tooting my own horn. It's very uncomfortable for me to talk about that. It's very uncomfortable for me to accept compliments,
yeah,
things like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like, like, thank you very much, type of thing. But I don't
yeah,
want, it affects me differently than, other people running around who think they're like, the greatest thing that walked on the earth. I just don't have any of that,
yeah.
so, and it'll show on this record. So I'm really excited. It's a baby record. It's only been out a month or so, and it's doing really well. So that's all. I can't control who buys it or who's the masses who do it. All I know is I want to put out something that I know is good, going back to knowing what is good and what is bad, you know, like, you know, no one can listen to this and go, oh, this is, oh,
Yeah,
what a piece of junk this record is. It's impossible to say that about that.
yeah,
John was like, he was blown away. He wanted to put it out right away when he saw me in London last year. Uh, so I thank him for that too. And I'm happy with that. And everything's just good now. So,
good, good.
I'm really happy. I'm happy for this interview. And, just to plug my book, or richieramone.com, go to richieramone.com and see all the other things. During COVID, I got into acting. So I've been doing some acting. I've been in a couple of movies now, which is a whole nother world, which we can do in our next talk.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's you know, I always thought, it's a bunch of stiffs actors, but they're crazier than rock and rollers. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
these they're insane. Poof, you know.
That's a Ramone saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I fit right in with them.
Richie, I'm going to put the website address in the show notes to this podcast, so
Oh,
everybody can go
fabulous.
and click it and go and check out everything that you're up to.
Yeah, and
Honestly, mate.
there's a big article I did with Viva La Rock, which is coming out right now next week. So people should pick that up. I'm in that issue. Talks about the album and stuff. So, cool.
Richie,
Thank you.
thank you, mate. I've had such a lovely time, and it's been really nice that you've given up your time to come and talk to me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, next time I'm out here, we'll get together. Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to
All
press
right.
stop. Don't go anywhere.
All right.